Well, trending up for your team and trending down for mine off of a bad loss for the 49ers, bro. I know we played the Chiefs, and it just couldn't have been any worse, right? Got beat. Brock Purdy obviously didn't play a great game, but I think the major downfall of this game was losing Brandon Aiyuk for the rest of the
Hmm.
season. Looks like it's a torn ACL. Obviously, nothing has been fully confirmed, but that seems the way that it's trending is torn ACL. Unfortunately for
That was
Brandon Aiyuk, who
gross
I'm glad he
too.
got paid, man, because that would have been tragic if he didn't.
Yeah, I
Um,
didn't
a
think of
lot,
that.
a lot here, bro, because it was also a game where we saw Deebo Samuel mysteriously pick up an illness right before the game, and he was out. We saw, obviously we knew Juwan Jennings wasn't playing. Ricky Pearsall came into the game. Jacob Cowling played into the game. So a lot here with the 49ers, and obviously, like, when you lose a guy like Brandon Ayuk, you can't just one-on-one replace that. I think this is Deebo and George Kittle time, and we're going to be expecting CMC back here. But I really think, Deebo, who didn't play last week, might be a buy low guy because he didn't play. And so people are automatically going to, like, it's already a negative sentiment when you get a 0 on the scoreboard or you don't play. This might be the
Yeah.
time to trade for him, bro.
No, I agree. That's a good call out. And kind of going back to just Brock Purdy, just in general, like 46 points scored between these two teams, and Brock Purdy and Patrick Mahomes didn't even have a passing touchdown. Like that's kind of insane. So it was a weird game. I also think this kind of speaks to just the Chiefs. The Chiefs, even with Patrick Mahomes, he has not been playing that well this year compared to years past. Now there's winning. I just think this defense is really good. The Chiefs defense is legit. So, but going back to your question, yeah, I mean, if I could try to trade for Deebo Samuel, absolutely, because there was kind of an like what's his face? Demario Douglas also had an illness this week too, and he only ran 10 routes of the 42 routes. And not it's kind of off topic, but hockey too. There was a bunch of illnesses in hockey where these guys weren't even, I don't know, something maybe going around or something. Because then you
Yeah.
had Kenneth Walker play, but he played
K Walk,
fantastic.
yep.
But yeah, so I would be trying to trade. Another guy that I think is definitely interesting is obviously Juwan Jennings. If I'm sure he was
Yes.
probably dropped by some people, and rightfully so, because Aiyuk and Deebo were here healthy. But now he becomes like an absolute must-add player if he's available in your leagues. And then Ricky Pearsall is also kind of, I guess, interesting because there is opportunity here. That he'll probably be the third wide receiver, or not the third. Well, yeah, third. He'll be the third
Yes.
wide receiver now going forward. So it's interesting. But Jacob Cowling too is another guy who I don't want to just say he's nothing because he did have 3 targets. So it was only 3 targets. He had that one big catch for like 40 some yards or something. But a guy that I want to be picking up, just a guy that I would kind of want to keep a mental note because he's a guy that I liked in the pre-draft process. I thought he had good underlying metrics. So just somebody that is interesting.
That's the thing about this Niner team is that we know the weapons. Like it's been
Yeah.
CMC, Deebo, Aiyuk, Kittle. Like we knew that coming into the year. And then Jordan Mason now enters the fold, and Juwan Jennings at times enter the fold. And it's like there's normally not a lot of room on this Niner offense for new pieces, but it seems like this thing might start to expand even more with all these injuries mounting up. Like I think it's going to be the Niners going to be a tough team to kind of gauge because we know Debo's going to be there, we know Kittle's going to be there, but like Juwan Jennings isn't Aiyuk, and as well as he
Yeah.
played earlier this year, he's a complementary piece. I think he'll be a good piece, and he's probably the must add of the week right now. But there's also going to be a mix. We saw Ricky Pearsall play like over 70% of the snaps yesterday. So I don't know about Jacob Cowling. Obviously, I think that's a little bit more long term, but like it reminds me a little bit more of who gets hot as
Mhm.
opposed to like Juwan Jennings is locked into this role. And,
Well, we
you
know
know,
who's kind of George Kittle. If you drafted George Kittle, I mean, man, that's a W.
yeah,
He's
it's, I
10
mean,
and
he might
1.
be the best tight end the rest of the way.
Oh, absolutely. I think 100% now for sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
It's in George Kittle, man. Like that was a player that was sinking down draft boards because it was he wasn't Trey McBride and
He's
Sam
he's a
Laporta.
boring pick. Yeah, he's just a
Yes,
boring,
Kyle
consistent
Pitts
top
and
5 tight end.
Dalton Kincaid, but
Yeah.
every year he's a top 5 guy, and I think we might see like a really nice stretch of games here out of George Kittle. Do you think you think he's a number one? You think he's over like Trey McBride, Travis Kelsey,
Yeah. I would say
Bowers?
uh I would say he's right there. Like there's a clear top 3. I would still prefer him. I would want him over Kyle Pitts. I think Kyle Pitts has been playing better as of late.
Mhm.
But definitely like George Kittle, just because George Kittle offers a lot of touchdown upside too. Like
Yes.
he's a red zone machine. I just think he's the best. I've always thought he's the best like overall tight end in football for a while because he's a very good blocker, which kind of also hurts him a little bit because he's sometimes at a higher risk of getting hurt, and we've seen it. But I just think he's fantastic. So I would say he's right there with Brock Bowers though, because Brock Bowers had a really good week as well. But yeah, I would say for sure top 3, absolutely. And if you want to put him at 1, I mean, there's no, I'm fine with that.
I got a lot of George Kittle shares, so I'm a very happy George Kittle and George Pickens, the two
There you
Georges from
go,
our
the
teams.
Georges.
Yeah.
How about Brock Purdy though?
Yeah, I was gonna say one last thing. Brock Purdy, man, how are you feeling about? Because I'm concerned. Fantasy wise, I'm
Yeah.
concerned without Aiyuk.
Oh,
I
yeah.
think this offense looks a little, but I'm concerned until probably about week 10 when it seems
Yeah,
like we
once
might be having an
CMC comes
interesting
back.
guy return.
Yeah, and that's as long as, which they say that's the target date, right? And hopefully he does come back, because I do think that will give this offense the kind of juice it needs right now, because it has not been great really for San Francisco this season. They've been really disappointing, honestly. But
Yeah.
teams get hot, and we know this. And CMC, we know how good he is, and as long as he's able to come back and he's the player that he was, last year, I think things will be fine. So right now with Brock Purdy, in one quarterback leagues, you just don't really trade quarterbacks. Like nobody really wants a quarterback, or no one, like they don't really move. Maybe in super flex, I think it becomes an interesting kind of like buy low candidate if you're able to actually buy low on them, because we know how good this offense can be. And I think that even this year with the guys healthy, like when Aiyuk was healthy, Deebo, Kittle, it still wasn't the same. Like CMC just provides a different element to this offense than those other guys can. So once CMC comes back, and as long as he is like the player that he has been, I think Brock Purdy will return to kind of what he was before.
The one thing about him is he's found ways, like even though he didn't pass the ball very well, got 2 rushing scores in. So it seems like Brock Purdy just like always finds a way, whether it's like a dump off to a running back, like he always finds ways to just be involved.
Yeah.
And I would say the saving grace for this Niners passing attack is we have a really fantasy friendly playoff schedule for the passing game. We got the Rams, we got at Miami, which should be a shootout at that point with Tua back, and then we got Detroit in the last game. So that'd be the saving grace for this passing attack, is that maybe you go buy a Brock Purdy right now, as you kind of, even though the fantasy production has been there, on tape it looks worse. So maybe the perception gives you a little bit of a buy low opportunity there.
He's just turned the ball over. He hasn't really done that in the past. Like he's been pretty clean. Now this year he's just turned the ball over quite a bit.
They're asking him to do more. And sometimes when you're
true.
asked to do more in the offense, you get a little bit more exposed.